You want to talk about yourself? He says, enough about talking about the boyfriend. What about the number one man in your life, Elton John? Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is your one-stop shop to build a beautiful online presence for your brand. They've got everything you need from marketing tools and analytics to everything in between, and you can use code MollyBurke to get 10% off your purchase of a website or domain name. You asked so many good questions. I feel like I could do 3 videos out of how many questions you guys sent in that are so good. I am so excited to sit down and answer as many of them as I can possibly squeeze into this video, because we know I talk a lot. So we'll see how many that we get through. So I'm not gonna delay it. You guys sent in questions all about my upcoming move, my relationship, moving in with a partner, and everything in between. Number 1, there was so many. I'm not even gonna attribute this question to one person because so many people were wondering about my adorable, sweet baby cat, Lavender, who is 4 years old now, by the way. Her and Elton are the exact same age. They're about a month apart, so stinking cute. And a lot of you were wondering if she is going to be moving in with my boyfriend and I. The answer is no, she is not. She is going to remain living at my condo in BC because the older she gets, the more resistant she gets to change. I completely understand that. That has been her home for much longer than LA was her home. She has been living in that apartment for 2 years almost, and like that is just her spot. And she and my dad are like soulmates. They are inseparable. They are besties, and I don't want to disrupt her. So for her benefit, I'm doing what is best for her, and I'm leaving her where she is happiest. The good news is, like, I will still be going there a lot. Like, I will be seeing her plenty, and I can't say what the future holds. I don't have a crystal ball in my hand. Maybe one day what is best for her will be coming back here, depending on, like, what's going on in my parents' life. So we'll just have to navigate that and see as we go. She's probably got a cool 15 years left in her, so you know, who knows where she'll be living at some point, but right now, like, that is where she is happiest. I travel a lot and my partner travels a lot, whereas my dad, like, he is almost always home with her, and my mom is gonna be home with her a lot. And I think my mom is her true favorite person, if I'm being honest. My mom, she's obsessed with my mom. So I think that she, to be honest, has been more bonded to my parents than me. And I think part of it is that she sees me with the dogs. Like, she sees me caring for the dogs, and she associates the dogs as mine. And therefore she is like, who is going to give me the most attention? It's the ones who don't have an animal. It is grandma and grandpa. They have ultimately kind of become her parents. She's a needy girl. She is not independent. She is more needy than any of my dogs have ever been. People who say cats are independent and don't take much work have never met my cat. She's a true COVID cat. She is high needs, and I think that they are able to meet her needs better than I am based on my work schedule and my travel schedule, and just frankly, she's just happier there. So I am not going to disturb her. That is where she will remain for the time being. But as I mentioned, I don't think, like, when I say I am going to be here, like back in LA full time instead of 50-50, that just means like I'm going to be here more than I am there. I am still gonna be there a lot. For example, I literally have a trip planned at the end of June, and I will be there for, I am not even sure how much time because I haven't even booked my flight back here yet. Like, I'm going for the last week of June, at least the first week of July, maybe the second week of July. So I am still going to be there a lot. My partner can come and visit there. Like, we are still gonna be doing that, but for all intents and purposes, LA is my main home again, and that's that. And then a second question that I saw a lot is about O&M. Will I be doing O&M lessons or orientation mobility lessons in my new neighborhood? And the answer is absolutely. I will be signing up for O&M, and I have been just independently, like with my partner or with my mom, practicing little routes around the neighborhood to try to get used to things. And because I've spent a year and a half almost like going and visiting for like multiple days at a time, I am like already a little bit familiar with the directly surrounding areas, but I would like to get some professional training because they're just able to call out little things that like myself, my mom, my partner wouldn't notice because they're professionals and their whole life is about making sure blind people can navigate safely. And so I do want to get some professional training in the new neighborhood good because this is the first time I'm living in a totally different area in Los Angeles than I have been living for the last 6 years. So I'm gonna do all the things, all the blind people things to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. And now before I jump into the questions that were specifically from certain people, I am going to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. If you are girl bossing this year, running your own business online, then you need a Squarespace website. That is where I host my website, mollyburkeofficial.com, and they have a new guided design tool to completely personalize your website from the ground up using Squarespace Blueprint. They have integrated, optimized SEO tools to make sure that you and your brand are getting discovered as easily as possible. You can use templates and layouts to make the website completely customized and personal to you, your brand, your business. You can also sell both digital or physical products on your Squarespace website, and you can make checking out very easy and simple for your customers by accepting credit cards, Apple Pay, PayPal, and you can even in eligible countries use ClearPay and Afterpay. Speaking of getting paid, we love it, we need it. It's what makes the world go round, we've all gotta eat. And they make it easy to manage your customers and payments, from vetting leads to receiving payments via invoice. They make it easy in one streamlined workflow. If any of that sounds appealing to you, you should check out squarespace.com. They've got so many more features that I didn't even mention. I'll have some stuff linked down below, and you can use code MollyBurke to get 10% off your purchase of a website or domain name. All right, now I'm gonna jump into some questions that were asked over on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/mollyburke. And over there, Annie asked me, what is my favorite new piece that we have purchased for the apartment? We are mostly using everything here, but we do have to get a couple of new pieces because it's a 3-bedroom and this is a 1-bedroom, so there's simply just more space. And it's a different layout, right? It's a different setup. So we have been picking up different new pieces. For example, here we haven't had a need for one of those tall standing lamps that you tend to put in the corner, but in the living room there, it really needs something like that to brighten it up. So we got one of those swivelly twisty ones that are super modern and cool, kind of LED strip twist light that I love. And we got a really good deal on it at, what is it, Home Goods, Home Sense, whatever that place is called. In Canada, it's one thing, and in America, it's another. So I never remember which one's which. One of those. They're the same store, just for some reason have slightly different names. So we got a really good deal on one of those, and I think it's really cool and fun. You guys know I love funky lighting since it's the only home decor item I can actually see. So it's a little twisty fun light. But I think honestly my favorite thing we picked up, which was also, that's the only store we've purchased things from so far. We got this bench to go just in the doorway underneath the front window where we can put our shoes underneath, because it has a little shelf so you can put your shoes, almost like shoe storage, and then a bench to sit down on so you can sit down and put your shoes on when you're about to exit or come in. And also if you have bags of groceries or whatever, you can put them down on the bench when you get in, just one of those kind of spots. And it's my favorite because my boyfriend picked it out, and I just wouldn't have expected him to pick this piece because it's a little chaotic. It's very colorful, it's flowers, it's really funky, it's really fun, it's bold, it's loud, it's quirky, it's totally different. And he picked it and he was like, I don't know if this is gonna be a little too crazy, but what do you think of this? And it was me, my mom, our friend Mo, and him out shopping, and of course Elton Melton. We were all like, yes. Well chosen, we're obsessed. I love it because it's just he brought in a little bit of himself and he killed it, he nailed it. It's so funky and fun. And from Jan over on Patreon, she asked if we will get a Los Angeles cat now that Lavender is a Canadian cat. And the answer is certainly not now. My boyfriend and I are both big animal lovers, so down the line we definitely would love to get more animals, more pets aside from my service dog. But right now, due to both of our travel schedules, and just due to the way our life is, it's a bit too chaotic to invite a pet into things. We have talked about far down the line getting a free-range bunny. I am obsessed with bunnies. I always have been. So I'd love to get a pet bunny that hops around the house. He currently has been living with a cat. His roommate has a cat. His previous roommate has a cat. So he grew up with dogs. So we're both big animal people. So definitely down the line, whether it's a cat, a bunny, or some other pet, another dog, we will get a pet, but not for probably 5 to 10 years, to be honest. If we last that long, fingers crossed. we're moving in together because we hope to take our relationship to the next level. But I think it's always important to remember when you move in with somebody, like this is the next step, right? And I'm a big believer that you need to live with a partner before you marry them. Everybody has a different opinion on that. I'm a believer that living together before marriage is really important because it is the trial run. You learn a lot about a person that there is no way of knowing without living together. I don't care how much you have traveled together. You do not know until you live together day in and day out who that person really is on the daily, and if you work together well on the daily. So I'm really excited to take that next step. I'm optimistic and hopeful that it will work, which is why I'm doing it, but I'm also aware that like it might not, and that's a part of dating. That's a part of being an adult and navigating relationships, is you do these things hoping for the best, but aware that anything can happen. So we'll see what the future brings, what this next step reveals to us both. And Rebecca on Patreon asked, how am I recreating accessibility features in my new space with my partner that I love in my existing spaces? Of course, design-wise, it's gonna be a lot of texture and stuff. Lighting is a big one. My place now has pot lights, his does not. It has like those old boob lights, do you know what I'm talking about? Like those old school boob lights. And because all I can see is lighting, staring at those boob lights on the ceiling drives me up a wall and back down the other side. So we are changing the light fixtures to new pendant lights or flush mount ceiling lights. We just got like one on Amazon. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing expensive. And I got another one on Homery. Changing those out to make sure that the one feature I get to look at is actually like somewhat aesthetically pleasing is like a little thing. It's not like really accessibility wise, although I do think it will brighten the space, getting like brighter ceiling light options put in. In terms of actual accessibility, of course, all of the like smart appliances, Alexa, all of that kind of stuff, like my lamps having smart bulbs from Philips Hue, all of those types of things built in, adding tactile buttons to microwaves so that I can use it. And my boyfriend's really sweet. Like he's thinking of all things of how to make organization work well for both of us and the fridge easy for me to navigate. He can have like 12-hour days at work. So during that time, like I'll be home alone and doing my meals on my own and stuff, which I lived alone for 2 years. I did my meals on my own before. Just because I can't cook per se doesn't mean I can't fix myself a meal. And so making sure that we create systems, getting braille labels and braille labeling things, getting glass jars or plastic containers that we transfer food into, getting an organization system that when the food comes in from the grocery store, it goes into the fridge at a certain section. The pantry is organized a certain way. The laundry is organized a certain way so that I don't need to ask him. And then of course, I'm gonna be using apps like Lookout or Seeing AI or Ira or Be My Eyes, like all of these apps that exist to help me navigate as independently as possible. Shayna from Patreon asked what I am looking forward to the most about moving in with my partner, and I think it's just taking our relationship to the next level and seeing what that brings. Like I'm excited to have my best friend around all day, every day. Well, I mean, not, you know, he goes to work, but like having my partner around more, coming home to each other, waking up to each other, and just getting to have fun doing life together and figuring out what that life together really looks like in practice, not just in conversation. Tracy over on YouTube asked me, how hard has it been to learn to navigate a new space and tips for doing so? Definitely getting professional O&M training, for sure. You know, I made a video about this, like I have like, I don't know, photographic memory-ish without the photograph part of it. So memorizing things does come quite easy to me. Moving is always difficult in that for the first week or two when there's boxes everywhere and nowhere has its place and you're still unpacking and figuring out where things are gonna go and moving furniture around to get the flow right, that's always the trickiest for me because I'm kicking things and I'm tripping and it can be exhausting and overwhelming and be like, is it ever gonna be easy again? But I've done it, Lord knows, enough to know that it will sort itself out. I think this move is different in that I have to memorize a whole new area as well as a whole new apartment. So that will be the trickiest part about it. But again, I've spent a lot of time in this apartment, so that makes it a little bit easier. And I will be getting O&M to make the transition with the neighborhood easier, which is the same thing I did when I had a new neighborhood in BC. Sir Lizard, I hope I'm saying that correctly, from YouTube asked if there's any tips for making moving in together go more smoothly. And I think the biggest thing is communication. Communication. We have talked a lot for multiple months around what are our expectations? What does division of chores look like for us? What do we think could be potential pitfalls? What do we expect challenges to be? What are we concerned about? How do we get through those concerns? What are our expectations around if somebody's in a bad mood? What do we want from the other partner to support each other through that? How much space do we expect to have, like, from each other? Living in the same vicinity, how much free time or alone time do we each want? Do we expect to go to bed together at the same time every night? And if not, how many days a week do we want to make sure we're going to bed at the same time? What does sleeping in the same bed? Do we expect to sleep in the same bed every night or not? Like, what are all of those things look like? So we've had a lot of conversations around our expectations. We've been vulnerable, we've had hard conversations, and I think that not going into it with rose-tinted glasses, like, oh my God, this is just gonna be the best, it's gonna be perfect, we're gonna have our favorite person around all the time, and it's just gonna be like sunshine and rainbows, just like when we hang out on the weekends. It's not like hanging out on the weekends. It's like doing real life together, which means doing hard days and good days together. So figuring out our expectations of one another and of our relationship and of our day-to-day life, knowing that we're gonna have those days and we're gonna communicate through them and have conversations through them and be upfront with each other when we experience those. And hey, like, remember how we talked about XYZ? I feel like that's not really happening right now, and I wanna discuss where that disconnect or miscommunication is happening and how we can move forward. And that's on being in an adult relationship. So I think that's the biggest thing, is preparing for not just the positives that come with moving in, but preparing for the hard parts and the negatives that are inevitable with moving in together. And the more prep work you can do around, like, what does dinner look like? How many days a week are we cooking? How many days a week are we doing takeout? How many days a week are we going out? What does budgeting look like for us? Who's cooking? Who is XYZ? I mean, in our relationship, it's easy. He's cooking. But what does that look like? How can I help him if he's the one cooking? Where am I picking up the slack so that we're still looking at like 50-50, and also recognizing that relationships aren't always 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20. As long as it's not always 80-20 and sometimes it flips, it works, right? And always putting in 100% of what you can when you can. So I think that's the best way to make it as smooth as possible. And I think the good thing with our moving situation is that we have traveled a lot together, and not all fun travels. We've had really, really stressful trips, and we've not had like a smooth year and a half. We've done long distance, and that comes with a lot of challenges to navigate. I dealt with untreated PMDD, which is not easy. He's had some health issues. They have not been easy. So I think the good thing is our relationship hasn't been all good. Like, we've had hardships that we've worked through. And so we know that we can work through conflict really well. Hi, you just decided to join? You want to talk about yourself? He says, enough about talking about the boyfriend. What about the number one man in your life, Elton John? Katie asked, how do we mix our personal interior design aesthetics? So his with mine. This is something we discussed like even before we planned on moving in together. Just what do we think a shared household looks like? And for us, like, the ideal was a 3-bedroom, which is exactly what we have. And part of that reason is we each wanted to have our own room. And I know it's unusual, but I also know that, like, I've seen other couples on social media do the same thing. I've always been a big believer, this is just my personal preference, that like sleeping in the same bed together every night is just not conducive to, well, like mental health and physical health. I think that sometimes you need your own space. I am a light sleeper, and I think that's where I come from. Like, I'm a really light sleeper, and I toss and turn a lot. I wake up a lot in the night. Sometimes, like, I feel like really guilty that I'm tossing and turning a lot if I'm having a bad night's sleep. So then it makes it even more stressful for me to try to sleep. Or if he has to get up, like sometimes for work he has to get up at 4:30 a.m. or 5 a.m. And sometimes I'm sick. Like, a few months ago, I had the worst virus that was causing me to have cough attacks at 2 a.m. If he had to get up at 5 a.m., I don't want to have a cough attack at 2 a.m. with him in the bed. Sometimes, you know, you got the runs, and like, I just don't want to be tooting all night next to my man. Like, I just think sometimes it's good to not sleep in the same bed, and then it makes it extra exciting when you do. Keep in mind, I'm still saying like 95% of the time we'll be sleeping in the same room. but like we wanted to have our own rooms where we got to feel like autonomy over our own space. Like we got to feel like we were our own person still. And so one room is completely his to do whatever the heck he wants with it. One room is completely mine to do whatever the heck I want with it. And one room is our shared space. And then of course, like the living room and bathrooms and stuff are our shared space. So that is one way in which we get to continue to maintain our own personal space. I saw this one couple on social media did the same thing. They had a 2-bedroom where they each had their own bedroom with their own bedroom furniture, and every single night they'd be like, which room are we gonna sleep in? And they were like, it's great. It feels like every night we get a sleepover, and if we don't wanna sleep in the same bed because one of us is sick or whatever, like we don't have to. And they loved having their own space where they didn't feel like they had to give up everything to create shared environments. They still got to have their own space with their own things that felt like theirs. The same way when you grow up in your parents' home, you have a space that feels like yours to go to. And so I love that. And then we have our shared space, which most of the furniture is mine. And a lot of the furniture that he did have a bit of furniture. Most of the main living room furniture was his roommates. So one of the roommates took all of it. One also took none and started from scratch, and then he is giving like the 1 or 2 pieces that were his to the roommate that's taking all the other stuff, because he's like, we might as well just start over. So we're getting a few new shared pieces where we're picking them together. And then frankly, like he's super easygoing with interior design and also just loves the colorful, quirky aesthetic. Like he's also really artistic. As I've mentioned, he also works in the entertainment industry. He's a really artsy person as well. So he loves like the mix match, quirky, boho, fun, colorful style. So he's into my aesthetic. And I think what's nice about our move is that it's the marrying of 2 of our life elements. I don't know how to explain that. Like the apartment is his, but the furniture is mostly mine. So it's like we're both bringing something. So it will feel like our home because the furniture will make it feel like something that is mine, but the apartment, he has lived there for 3 years. So like in my mind, like that is his apartment, you know, like, but so it'll feel like home to him because he's already been living there for 3 years, but it'll feel like home to me because it's the furniture that I've been living with for 2 years. So it's kind of like this something of yours, something of mine coming together to make our home. So Emily asked about division of chores because her and her partner are struggling with that a little bit. And I think that's a really common struggle in relationships. And I think it goes back to communicating and discussing it ahead of time, but being flexible that in reality things might change. And that there's no like set, it always has to be this way. Being flexible and adaptable is super important. And knowing that like some days like you're sick and I'm gonna have to do what is typically your chore, or you're tired and I'm gonna have to do what's typically your chore. Like it's about give and take. That's what relationships are. And it's about communicating. So we have decided that like there's a certain list of chores that are his and a certain list of chores that are mine. He always does those. I always do these. Again, knowing that there's that flexibility that certain days are gonna look a little bit different, but for the most part, we're not like, oh, sometimes I'll take out the trash and sometimes you will, sometimes I'll do this and sometimes you will. That leaves a little bit too much room for me, for like that interpretation of like, I do more than you, or you don't do this enough, and I'm always the one who ends up blah, 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 blah. But if we're always certain, like you take out the trash, I do the laundry, you do the grocery shopping and cooking, I do the cleaning of the dishes and the counters, and I put away the groceries when you bring them in. You do XYZ, I do XYZ. We know who's responsible for what, and if it doesn't get done, we know who to look to and be like, I noticed you didn't do XYZ. Is there a reason? Can I help you with that today? You know, so I think that's the easiest way to do it. And then Alicia asked, what do I anticipate the adjustment period to be? I think it's important to note that regardless of disability, there's an adjustment period for anybody when they move in with a partner. It's a whole new experience for both of you. And I expect there to be an adjustment period for both of us. And I think it's important to be aware of that and to give each other grace. You know, I'm gonna only be living there for a little bit before I head back to BC for a bit. And that's honestly like what life will look like. There will be still a lot of travel for me. I travel a lot for work and I still plan to go to BC. So it will be a lot of like here, there, and everywhere. So I don't exactly know what to expect, but we'll navigate it. That's what it's about. And you know, there are some people who would look at my past relationship of moving in with a partner and breaking up as a failure, and I don't. I look at it as a learning lesson. That was an experience that I needed to have that allows me to go into this next relationship and this next move more wise and more prepared and more ready with more knowledge under my belt. And how lucky am I that I have that? And that I can share that with my current partner who has yet to have that experience. But he's lived with roommates and he's navigated that. That's an experience that I haven't had. I've only ever lived with family alone or with a partner. So I think, you know, I'm prepared that things are going to look different than I expect. That there are gonna be hard days, that there are gonna be wonderful days where I'm like, yes, this is exactly why we wanted to live together. And there are gonna be days when we need to have hard conversations and reassess. And that's relationships. So I'm ready. I think Elton is really excited. A lot of you were worried about Elton too and asking about Elty and how he's gonna take it. Definitely when we first started dating, there was some jealousy there for sure. He was a little bit jealous of the new man in my life, but he knows, and my partner knows, that LT is the #1 boy in my life. And the good news is my boyfriend is a human golden retriever and he's obsessed with Elton. I have to put boundaries on it. Like I have to be like, boys, you cannot be bonding this much. Step back, you know? So my boyfriend has no problem with Elton being around all the time. My boyfriend expects me to be loving up on Elton all the time and to be giving him my love and affection. And that's like what he wants. Like he loves Elton like he's his baby too. And so Elton and him are super tight and bonded. Elton has spent a lot of time at the apartment, and also Elton's used to me living with other people. Elton's used to me living with my mom, living with my parents, having other people around. He is, as much as he is a lover and obsessed with getting attention, he is also very independent and obsessed with napping and having time to himself. So I anticipate it being the same as it's been. I think he's went through his jealousy period. We got through it, and now it's all just like happy, fun. I mean, he gets so excited every time we go over there. So I think he'll be happy that that's his new home. All right, I think I have talked just about enough. Like I have tired myself out from talking so much, and I need to go eat lunch. I need some calories in this body ASAP. So now I'm going to love you and I'm going to leave you. But until next time, you can click over here to see Elton John's adorable 4th birthday party and a little walk down memory lane, or you can click over here to watch this video.